Every week, President Trump seems to make half the country very happy and half the country very angry. We're going to be going through some of those stories, including some deceptive hit pieces from CBS News, 60 Minutes, and why can Biden and Obama deport illegal immigrants? But if Donald J. Trump tries to do it, suddenly it's the worst thing. To help me go through this and other big stories, I have my special guest, Mike McCormick. Mike, thank you for joining me again.
Hey, Stephen, great to see you again.
All right. Well, I want to go through some things with you that I think will be very interesting. Just for some background, Mike McCormick, he used to be the stenographer for Joe Biden. He actually personally witnessed the Biden crime families in Ukraine while taking notes. He's written a book about this and another book about Obama and the Catholic Church and other things. I want to play a clip for us to react to together, and then we'll talk about it. Let me pull that up.
We've actually found there's a lot of people who are federal government employees, they're active employees who nonetheless applied for and have received unemployment insurance.
While they're federal employees?
Yes.
Wow.
And this appears to be at least 100,000 people.
Wow.
Okay, so Elon Musk over the weekend does an interview with Lara Trump, admits that Doge has discovered 100,000 employees were receiving a taxpayer-funded paycheck while also illegally, fraudulently collecting unemployment. Can the American government get it together and quit wasting our money? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I live in the DC area, and this area is in shock right now with what Doge is doing, which is good. It's long overdue. I mean, when I worked in the White House, I worked as a stenographer in the press office as a contractor for most of the time there. I worked from 2002 to 2018. But we got federalized in 2014, and things really changed, I think, for me personally, for the worse when we became federal employees. And I've noticed over the years, kind of looking at how that office behaves as federal employees, they don't work too hard. They don't work as hard as we did when we were contractors. And I think that's emblematic of a lot of stuff in the federal workforce. It's time to do some pruning and some trimming, and thank goodness they're doing it. And, it's not just that they're inefficient. There's outright fraud that's been going on for a long time, and they got to get their arms around it. Thank goodness for Doge and government, President Trump putting him in power. And Elon Musk really seems to have his arms around how to get it done. So I think there's a lot more in the future we can look forward to from them.
Yeah, when you say that people are in shock, maybe elaborate on that. Are you talking about like cutting off funds to these NGOs and charities? Are you talking about firing people? Are you talking about real estate values dropping by 6 figures almost overnight? What were you referring to?
No, I haven't seen the real estate values drop. I think that's a bit of a fake news story. But USAID was canceled, and I put up my Substack as Midnight in a Laptop. I'm Good and Evil. And about a couple months ago, I came across some old documents that related to a trip I took with Vice President Cheney in 2005. And it was funded, the documents were put together by USAID. And basically what happened was we went to survey in a helicopter in Pakistan, a USAID operation where they were supposedly doing earthquake relief in the mountains of Pakistan. This is December 2005. But what I looked at these documents, I had, there was a map of this helicopter tour. It flew right over Abbottabad, Pakistan. This is where Osama Bin Laden was killed in 2011. So all of a sudden, red flags started going off. And I felt like USAID, I know, has been a front for the CIA for a long time. And this made it sound suspicious to me that USAID was in the hills of Pakistan helping cover up the fact that they knew where Osama bin Laden was. I've seen in my Substack, I went and located photos of, on a CIA legacy website, where the CIA were surveilling this this compound that Osama bin Laden was eventually killed in 2004 and 2005. So they have these surveillance photos, 2004, 2005. Then they send Vice President Dick Cheney flying over the top of it in December 2005. And I think there's a lot of questions there. I've raised this in other media, and I'm really glad to be able to talk to you about it. You have a significant audience, and I know you talk to a lot of senators and congresspeople. They should know about this.
Yeah, in fact, later this week, if everything goes well, I have former Congressman Kurt Weldon coming on. He's going to be talking about, he has information that the government knew Osama bin Laden was in a different part of the country. Meanwhile, they were sending U.S. soldiers to different parts of the Middle East where they were being killed, knowing that bin Laden wasn't there. He's going to walk me through all of that. That's really interesting. So you guys flew over this compound years before he was there. It's almost like, were they surveilling where the end movie scene would happen, or was he already there? That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to talk to Congressman Weldon about it. I mean, I've got the document right here. I can show you the map if you want me to walk over there and get it.
Yeah, no. Send it to me after this, because that's
I'll
something.
send it to you.
Osama bin Laden, 9/11, Building 7, those are all things that we're going to be doing a deep dive on. So do you think, other than disrupting income for individuals, do you think President Trump cutting off USAID funding for a lot of these NGOs, charities, churches, do you think in the end this hurts the Democrat Party, especially when it comes to elections?
Yeah. You know, and USAID, so they played a huge role in funding the Wuhan pandemic. That's what I put in my book. You know, there's two parts of the book. USAID has funded a huge amount of money into Catholic NGOs over the last 4 years, mostly the Biden administration. And there were other U.S. agencies that were doing that. And those NGOs were actually doing what I put in my book, human trafficking and drug trafficking that were affiliated with the cartels in South America. And Obama knew it, Biden knew it. They ran it through a guy named Theodore McCarrick. He was working closely with Pope Francis. Both Theodore McCarrick and Pope Francis have died in the last month. My book about their involvement in this came out in early February. So, and the book is An Almost Insurmountable Evil, How Obama's Deep State Defiled the Catholic Church and Executed the Wuhan Pandemic. And USAID was central to funding these operations. USAID was funding the Biden crime family in Ukraine, and they funded a lot of corruption there. So a lot of this is in the book, and taking USAID out takes the money out of what the Democrats, the corrupt Democrats, were doing. And I don't know if they have much of a party left if they don't have a corrupt party. They're so corrupt, and it's really starting to come out.
Yeah. I just keep thinking, you know, they say you cut off the head of the snake, a few more grow back. Well, I believe this was the head of the snake. I just don't know what's going to grow back, where their money's going to come from. They're pretty clever when it comes to fundraising, but I think this was a big blow. Okay. I know that you are Catholic, but you are a Catholic with a good sense of humor. President Trump made a joke. Somebody asked him in an interview, who would you like to be the next pope? He didn't really have an opinion, so he jokingly said, I'd like to be pope. Right. And then he said, no, I'm just kidding. You know, there's a really great guy that I've known for many years in the state of New York, the city of New York. I think he would be great. And then he kind of moved on from it. Somebody made this funny AI-generated image of him as the Pope. He put it out there. Now everybody is blasting him. Some are just saying, hey, this was just in good humor. He doesn't want to be the Pope. Others are saying, you've desecrated the holy throne of the, I'm not Catholic myself, but the holy office of the Pope. What are your thoughts on him doing that?
You know, I was born Catholic, baptized at birth. I went to Catholic school till 6th grade, but I went away from the church for a while after college. I've recently gone back about a year ago. And that's what actually led me to write that book was about a year ago, I was on with Alex Jones and I was watching his show afterwards. And he had this feeling of this huge sense of evil that we were up against. President Trump was up against lawfare. There was a lot of antagonism in the media directed towards Trump supporters, Trump people, literally the voting process. And I thought to myself, what's the most evil thing I remember from my time at the White House? And it was the relationship between Joe Biden and this Theodore McCarrick, who was a cardinal who became exposed as a rapist of altar boys and seminarians. This is a really, truly evil man. And when I looked into the White House visitor logs, the associations that he had with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and most notably, the White House chief of staff at the time, Dennis McDonough, led me to believe there was such evil. I don't think I would have found that if I hadn't gone back to the church. I don't think I would have been in the frame of mind to look seriously at the Catholic Church as a Catholic who wanted it to be better if I hadn't gone back to church. And I was back and forth with Archbishop Vigano. Archbishop Vigano was one of the first people to expose this guy McCarrick for his evil deeds. And what I emailed with him was, Archbishop, we're just telling the truth about what happened. And when you tell the truth is God's word. And when you tell God's word and you expose the lies and tell the truth of God's word, God is on your side. So I feel like God is on our side. And there may be what that picture that President Trump put out. I just wrote a Substack today for my paid subscribers. Basically, I said this is an exorcism. We're looking at they're voting for a new pope in a conclave in Rome, in the Vatican. I think they're out to purify the church, and the selection is more of an exorcism than it is a conclave. And that's what this church needs. I know it needs a new pope. It needs a clean and pure future.
Okay, interesting. I appreciate your insight on that. I noticed a lot of the people that were mad about Trump putting a picture with his face on the outfit of the Pope. These are the same people that said it wasn't bothersome in France when they mocked Jesus's Last Supper. That was just in good humor, and people shouldn't take it too seriously. It's just interesting how people pick and choose which religious thing to support and which one to be wholly offended about, right?
Right. And Pope Francis didn't condemn that heretical sort of mocking of the Last Supper that was part of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics in Paris. It really bothered a lot of people. It bothered me to see that sort of ugliness put through the Olympics. I mean, there's a globalist element there. And, that's what's also in my book is the connection between, and Archbishop Vigano says this a lot, the connection between the World Economic Forum globalists, the Davos globalists, and the Vatican. And that's where Pope Francis was like, what I call him in my book is the morality launderer for the globalists and the Obama-Biden administration. Biden would not have been elected if it hadn't been for Pope Francis. This is a really significant point that I make in this book.
Okay.
In 2020, Pope Francis came out in March when the world was just learning about this terrible thing called Wuhan virus. He closed the Catholic Church down globally. 1.4 billion Catholics around the world saw him walk out to an empty St. Peter's Square, and he said, "It's too dangerous. Stay home, be afraid." He wasn't telling them to have no fear, God is on your side. He was telling them what the globalists wanted. And they stayed home and they were afraid. And as he was saying that, there were lawsuits being filed that changed the voting patterns through mail-in votings and changed the way the election was held. and they used that to put Joe Biden in office. Joe Biden was hiding in his basement that year, and that's what we got when Joe Biden came in, and he started funding the Catholic Church for this human trafficking, drug trafficking situation we saw all along the southern border for the last 4 years.
The US dollar is under siege, and Biden's policies have caused irreparable damage, slashing its buying power by up to 30%. Inflation is down, but everything is still expensive. Meanwhile, President Trump is fighting to restore America's economic strength and protect the petrodollar. History tells us the dollar's value has plummeted while gold and silver have soared. If you're betting on the future, 10 or 20 years from now, gold and silver are the clear winner. Don't let your wealth be eroded. Colonial Metals Group's experts can help guide you, whether you're starting fresh or managing an existing IRA or your family's fortune. Now, their professionalism can help you understand why gold and silver are so powerful. I want you to act now by giving them a call at 800-807-2143 for a special offer. Get a free safe and up to $7,500 in free silver. But best of all, I want you to get peace of mind. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Stephen-Gardner or snap the QR code in the bottom left-hand corner. You guys, I believe in gold and silver. You should have some in your portfolio. Yeah. I just want to be clear to my viewers. I have nothing against the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church, but the documents from USAID show that they took in hundreds of millions of dollars. And then what did they do? They turned around and helped with the invasion of illegal immigrants through Joe Biden into the United States of America. At the same time, you did have the Pope saying that Trump was wrong. There shouldn't be borders. These are all God's children. Like, I know they're God's children, but if you destroy a strong area by bringing in weak areas, and then ended up being such a mess. But I noticed that with the USAID money is like, wow, there was a lot of money going to fake charities and real churches, but their mission became flood the country, not do good in other countries.
Right. And it wasn't just our country. They did it all through Europe. The European political situation is fraught with uncertainty right now because of basically there's been a Vatican-backed illegal immigration overrun of many Western European countries, and it's serious. People have to stand up to it. So this is the difference between, I go to church as a Catholic to deepen my relationship with God and get to heaven. And there are a lot of social issues that are now being promoted through the church that I question. And I think that's what this conclave is about. The leadership of the church has to look at what's been happening over the last several years. President Trump is part of it. He sent J.D. Vance to the Vatican on Easter weekend, and he met with a Cardinal Parolin, who I don't think would be a good pope, and he met with Pope Francis. And as soon as he left, Pope Francis passed away. God's will be done. But one thing they told them was, we've taken away the funding for USAID. You will not get more funding for the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. We're not sending American taxpayer money to the Catholic Church to do further programs. And that is why I think President Trump tweeted out that image of, or he tweeted out that image of him as the Pope. He didn't make the image, but he tweeted it. He's saying, look, we're not going to fund you if you're going to go antagonistically against the interests of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. There's supposed to be this separation of government and church, and there wasn't. They became a huge money source for many, many churches, but at the same time, they just absolutely crushed church attendance, crushed people's faith with COVID. I had a guest on here several months ago that said top people from the U.S. military were deployed to all the major churches in America to scare the bejeebies out of them so that they would shut down during COVID.
Wow.
My own church shut down during COVID for a long time, and then they were forcing people to wear masks. They highly recommended the vaccine. My wife and I, our family, we were grateful to resist all of that.
Yes.
But man, that was a psyop, a
Yes.
mass psyop on the American mind, I guess the world mind. But I was shocked when I learned that they were basically trying to scare church leaders into complying with what Fauci wanted.
That's right. And, and I talk about this in my book. I traveled with Joe Biden to China in 2011, and he got in front of an audience at Sichuan University in Chengdu, China, and said, "You have too many old people," because they'd had this one-child policy. So they had this one-child policy that meant that for every one person, they killed the girls. The girl babies they killed. So they just kept the boy babies. So that meant for every 4 elderly, there was like 1 boy baby. There weren't 4, 3, just 1. And he said, you have too many old people. The people working in your workforce right now are going to be supporting all these elderly. 8 years later, and that was 2011, in the September of 2019, they released the Wuhan pandemic. And the Biden administration came out and affirmed that, saying that there was Wuhan virus was released at the World Military Games in Wuhan in like September, October of 2019. So this to me was, and the USAID was funding the research behind the gathering of it's called viral surveillance. They did this huge viral surveillance program, and the funding for it ended in September 2019. And Trump said, "I'm not going to renew the funding." And what did they do? They rolled out the Wuhan pandemic.
What? Oh my gosh. That's like on the Netflix show House of Cards when Frank Underwood, he's about to lose power. So he says the only way to stay in power is to create chaos.
Yeah.
Right? Wow.
Right.
Now look, the WHO, the World Health Organization, they're saying we're about to go bankrupt if the US government doesn't give us money. The United Nations announced in the last 10 days, we might go bankrupt if we don't get American taxpayer money. The World Economic Forum, they're going through massive upheavals. It turns out Klaus Schwab was like stealing money while at the same time doing evil around the world. He was literally saying to people, you will own nothing and be happy. And then out of the back door, he was stealing money from all of these billionaires. Like, how much evil is there on planet Earth?
That's right. And in the week, I got this in the book, the week before Trump came in 2017, so January 2017, he gets inaugurated. Joe Biden went to the World Economic Forum and met with Xi Jinping. And at that same World Economic Forum, Bill Gates rolled out a new kind of vaccine that he called DNA RNA vaccine, which became the mDNA vaccine. That all happened before Trump was even in office. They were planning this thing.
Is that how Fauci was able to confidently say there's going to be a pandemic during Trump's time? That was always so weird to me that he could prophesy that.
Yeah, he said that, and I've got that in the book too. He said that at an event that was held at Georgetown University in January 2017. Ron Klain, who was a top Joe Biden operative, was the guy who was helping him say that. Ron Klain is there, and he says, if we're going to have a pandemic because Trump is cutting the funding for our viral research program. And then Fauci gets on there and goes, there's going to be a surprise outbreak in 5 years. That's what Fauci did. It was the same event. And it was days before Trump came in. That's exactly right.
Wow. It's like they were getting all the pieces on the chessboard to move them in order to make Trump look bad. Okay, speaking of that, over the weekend, let me back up. So President Trump is suing CBS and 60 Minutes for deceptively editing the interview with Kamala Harris to help her win the election. Then yesterday, they did a hit piece on 60 Minutes saying how bad President Trump is. People are going to be poor. He's doing all this stuff to illegal immigrants. He's very, very bad for the country. That judges are now having to step in to block him in order to save democracy. CBS News then uses 3 anti-Trump lawyers, one of them, Marc Elias, Hillary Clinton's personal goon, that masterminded the Russia hoax. Why do you think the establishment media works so hard to subvert President Trump? And don't their viewers ever get tired of the lies? I mean, what do you think of all of that?
Marc Elias was the guy who put all the lawsuits in that changed voting regulations in 2020, 2019 to 2020. That was Marc Elias. And that's my book. I've got a whole list of them. Why does CBS do that? CBS, so I worked with CBS back in the White House. They are in the bag for Joe Biden. Nora O'Donnell, who used to be the anchor woman for CBS, used to go to Joe Biden. He'd have this sort of pool party in the spring, and her kids would go and have a big fun time. It was a bunch of media in DC, but it was kind of kept under the table. And it was always basically everybody who went there was pro Biden. And she came out and became, I think she was given the anchor woman slot because she was so close to Joe Biden. Once he got elected, she got in there. She did a Super Bowl interview with him, his first big interview after he got elected in 2021. And she broadcasted, we're going to do a 20-minute interview with President Biden at 20 minutes at the Super Bowl. It's a huge audience. It's a big get for the president. Biden only spoke to her for 12 minutes. They had to edit out 8 minutes of what they probably wanted, but they had to. That was 2021, and they knew behind the scenes that he wasn't capable of speaking to a global audience without being heavily edited, and they helped him and edited it. That's what they did. CBS is in the bag for the globalists.
Wow. Yes, I remember all of that. You're jogging. Like, I've covered so many news stories, it's hard to keep them all. Yeah, that was a big deal. It's crazy to me. Like, a lot of these places, they're losing their viewership so rapidly, and yet what do? They just keep leaning in to the old playbook, the lie and hope they don't figure it out playbook. I mean, it's weird to me. Like, I make mistakes on my podcast. Every now and then I make mistakes on a news story, or I'll hear something. Like, I try to take ownership of that, but these guys blatantly lie. It's crazy. It's like, like you say, it's like they're in their pocket.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, President Trump the other day did that ABC News interview with Terry Moran.
Yes.
And he manhandled Terry Moran, right? But Terry Moran was one of the reporters that was on that trip I took with Vice President Cheney in 2005 that flew over Abbottabad. I don't remember if Terry Moran was in the Helo tour over in Pakistan, but I know he was in Afghanistan. We went to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. I know he was in Iraq with us. I know he was in Afghanistan with us. I have particular memories of that. I don't know if he went over. But who was on that Helo tour that did have an interview with Vice President Cheney was CNN Dana Bash. Dana Bash at the time, her husband was a intelligence community operative. And he's one of the 51 guys that got his clearance pulled because he signed the letter for the Hunter Biden laptop. Well, in 2005, she was married to this guy named Jeremy Bash. She divorced him in 2007. But in 2011, when Osama Bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad, Leon Panetta was the CIA director. His chief of staff was Jeremy Bash. So Jeremy Bash and his wife, Dana, in 2005, were very tied into the intelligence community. And she goes over on this trip and she asks Cheney in an interview, then I have a transcript of it on my Substack. She asks him, there are reports that that Osama bin Laden may be in different parts of Afghanistan. Do you know where he is? And Cheney goes, Dana, I can't answer that question. It was I will neither confirm nor deny. They had just flown over Abbottabad. My guess, my suspicion is she knew she was part of this trip. CNN was part of this trip because they were promoting this idea that Osama bin Laden was somewhere on the loose. And meanwhile, they knew where he was. He was right underneath them. They just flew their helicopters right over the top of him, and they weren't telling anybody.
Wow. Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So is Dana Bash's current husband one of the 51 that spread that lie about Hunter Biden's laptop?
No, she was married to Jeremy Bash from,
Oh.
I think they divorced in 2007. Jeremy Bash is one of the 51 who got his security clearance pulled.
Wow. Wow. Small world. I've noticed there's a lot of people in news whose spouse is high up in government.
Right.
But I'm sure there's, just like with the Pelosi's, I'm sure she never gets insider information and shares it with Paul. I'm sure that never happens, Mike.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's all over the city. And, so taking out USAID, he's got Vicky Lake what's her first name? Carrie Lake. Thank you. Carrie Lake in charge of this new sort of global media program. That's going to be a big thing. They got to clean out all these corrupt, long time. They put operatives in there. They're not working for everybody. They're just working for mostly the Democratic Party, and they've got to clean it out. So he's in the process of that.
Okay. Speaking of cleaning it out, we've completed last week President Trump's first 100 days. I think he did great. The border is looking really great. The economy minus the stock market, but I noticed that the drop that everybody was so worried about, the markets are now back up over that, but the media is not talking about that. They're still talking as if that drop is insurmountable. But it actually has come back up. I was tracking my own portfolio and noticed that. But what do you think might come in the next 100 days? And then the third set of 100 days, do you think we're going to see maybe more information revealed about the Biden crime family? Do you think that we're going to see some of these people that Republicans and conservatives have been saying, why aren't these people being arrested? Members of Congress, lawyers, what do you think will happen in the next 100 days?
I think one of the most important things that has to happen in the next couple of days is they have to confirm the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Ed Martin. He's got to be confirmed by the Senate. There's a handful of Republican senators who are out there making noise like they can't get behind his confirmation, and they should. He's going to do some really strong investigations on things. And that's what the Republicans have to get behind. That would be a really important next step for the next 100 days. Confirm Ed Martin.
Okay, I've heard his name, and I agree. I think he would be a warrior, right? Like people wanted Matt Gaetz to be the head of the DOJ. Like this is the Matt Gaetz of Washington D.C. This guy's bold. He's courageous. He wants the truth. He knows that there's been a lot of wrong in D.C., and I believe he wants to correct that. So I'm really hoping that he's able to get through. So disappointing that there's Republicans that may be the reason that there is hang up there. Okay, so you have put in your book about the impeachment and imprisonment of Joe Biden. You know a lot of details. Do you think between now and the end of Trump's second term, are we going to see information continue to come out about the Bidens, or do you think members of Congress have just moved on?
It won't come through Congress. If it comes out, it's going to happen. That's why I think they should get Ed Martin in there. If he can do a grand jury investigation of crimes that occurred in D.C., and this is a jurisdiction where they do it. I used to be, before I was at the White House, I was sort of a stenographer for the court system here. And I listened to the grand jury proceedings against that involved Monica Lewinsky, the Lewinsky investigation. So I know a little bit about how grand juries here work in DC. I think Ed Martin could do a really good job with the grand jury here in DC. And there would be people who would want to get to the bottom of all the crimes that the Bidens did in Ukraine, in China, elsewhere. And, you know, we've got to make the laws of this land be there for everyone. And frankly, the U.S. attorney who was investigating, they had a special counsel, this guy, David Weiss. He's a fraud. Right now, he's a fraud. And I'd be happy to get in front of a grand jury and explain why I can say that. Because I have personal dealings with him, trying to give him information and evidence that would have impeached Joe Biden, that they refused. They refused to use it. So I'd love to get in front of a grand jury. And if Ed Martin wants to call me down, I'd be all over that.
Yeah. I think if they can't get him, you know, because of the auto pen pardons that happened, you know, could the truth at least come out and his legacy be tarnished, because he damaged so many people. His presidency was just so damaging to small businesses, to individuals, to churches, to trust in the government. Like, just everywhere you look, he was very damaging. What do you think? Will anything come out about, or will there be any justice about Dr. Fauci? We already know he was involved. We already know he was part of the cover-up, but will there ever be justice done?
That, I think, has to go through a grand jury system. I think he got a pardon. I'm not sure what it pertains to, but it's a federal pardon. State investigations don't work for that. So is Fauci going to pay a price? I mean, I've got a lot about Fauci in my book, and there's going to be more coming out. You know, his long time activism is just criminal. It's actually criminal. There's a really good movie out called Thank You, Dr. Fauci by Jennifer First. It's a documentary. And I watched that and I was like, wow. And that goes hand in glove with my book. And,
Okay.
you know, Fauci was part of doing stuff with the Ebola virus. And the Biden crime family were involved in a company called Metabiota. And Metabiota was involved in the Ebola virus. They were involved in setting up the biolabs in Ukraine. There's a lot of dirty stuff out of the Biden crime family, and this surveillance, this viral surveillance stuff that Fauci was funding. Metabiota was funded partly by Fauci, and also the DOD.
Okay. One update I wanted to give to my audience, because this is a story I covered, but after the pandemic, it was revealed that Fauci had set up and funded these programs where they were basically torturing beagles. For 40 years, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs, they would cut their heads open and allow flies and larvae to live in their brain. They would have them do cocaine to see how they would react. No dog's going to do well on cocaine. No dog's going to do well on flies swarming their eyes and their open brain injuries. And anyway, it's like poetic justice. Dr. Bhattacharya, who Fauci shut down, shamed, tried to discredit, he's now been put in a position of authority. He just signed no more torturing these beagle dogs like Fauci approved. I just wanted to update my audience. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the stuff they did. And so National Institutes of Health is right down the street from where I live. And they've got to look into that. There was a lot of stuff done through National Institutes of Health. Thank goodness Bobby Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in charge of the Health and Human Services agency that's going to start removing ugly, fraudulent, dangerous research and start to really make America healthy again. Maha, I'm a Maha guy. I hope they're very successful at what they're doing. I think it's one of the best things about the new Trump administration is how many, what a wide variety of activism he has in key roles. cutting funds, getting people healthier, getting the media sorted out. So I think there's a lot to hope for in the future, the next 100 days and the 100 days after that.
Yeah, I'll be covering this. I don't have all the details yet, but I read just late last night that I guess RFK Jr. is trying to supplant the mRNA vaccine because it's really hard to get it off the schedule now. But they know how damaging it is. Hundreds of thousands of people died, millions injured. So they can't remove it immediately. So it's really hard. So what he's trying to do is subvert it and supplant it with like an old flu vaccine. So he's throwing $500 million to try to drive down the money here and drive up the information here. Now scientists are coming out saying he's trying to take away your mRNA vaccine. He's anti-science. This guy's a wackadoodle, like all of this stuff. And I'm like, he's literally just trying to get rid of these vaccines that have done so much damage to the world population, but especially the American population, where we make up 4% of the planet, but had 16% of the deaths. Thanks, Dr. Fouchy. So anyway, that was a big news thing. So, okay, in our final minutes, I want to hear about the book, An Almost Insurmountable Evil, how Obama's deep state defiled the Catholic Church and executed the Wuhan pandemic. Tell my audience and myself, what are we going to learn reading this book?
So there's 3 parts of the book. The first part is basically a deep dive into how Obama operatives influenced the election of Pope Francis and then turned him into an operative on child trafficking and human trafficking across the border, the Iran nuclear deal, and betraying Chinese Catholics. That's a big deal right now in Rome. And then there's another part where I talk about how Joe Biden was more the puppeteer than he was the puppet. And a lot of people kind of look at him, they don't get that. But Joe Biden became vice president at a really weird time. What happened was there was a guy who came to Washington. His name was Larry Sinclair. And he had this story about he was a limo driver in Chicago and he took Barack Obama out. They smoked crack together and had gay sex. And he told that story at the National Press Club downtown, and the media ignored it. But what happened was he walked out from that press conference that he gave, and he was arrested by Beau Biden because he had some kind of outstanding warrant or something in Delaware. Beau Biden spirits him off to jail, puts him in jail for 2 months. Joe Biden gets named vice president during that time. They have the Democratic National Convention during that time, and they're off to the races. And then Larry Sinclair gets let out, and he's like released on his own recognizance. And then the final section is what Biden, Fauci, Klain, Obama did to set up the Wuhan pandemic. It started in 2011, and it went till 2019 and all the way through 2020 with Biden's activities in this company called Metabiota, his investment, the CIA was part of it. This is all in the book.
Okay. Gosh, dang, that sounds really interesting. I know you've shared some stuff throughout the interview. So do you think, because I know Obama did not like Biden, do you think Biden maybe blackmailed his way into the vice presidency? Yeah.
I think that blackmail would be a strong word to use, but I think he leveraged his way in. I think, he used to have this saying, I made a deal with President Obama when he let me on his team that I would be the last guy in the room. Well, I think the reason he was the last guy in the room is because he had this leverage, and he would tell Obama, I want this. So that's why Biden got all the choice assignments. He got to work on Ukraine. He got to work on China. He got to work on the Recovery Act, all these things that really needed to be done because Biden was thirsty and he wanted to become the president ahead of Hillary Clinton. And the only reason that she ran and he didn't, in his mind, was his son Beau died in 2015, and it sort of took the wind out of his sails. So she was right there, and she ran in 2016, and the rest is history. If it hadn't been for President Trump winning in 2016, we would be in a terrible place in this country right now.
Yeah. Oh, I completely believe that. Mike, I love talking to you. We'll have you back on. I'm going to put a direct link to your Substack as well as your books so that people can check that out. Thank you for all that you do, exposing the truth. I know that you are a big believer in the truth will set you free, and to speak boldly the truth. I really appreciate that. Thank you again for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen.